Howdy everyone, this is Tricia and welcome to my channel. So I am back with another vintage styled filigree Christmas ornament. These were so beautiful. I really love the way these turned out as well as the ones that I did last week. So if you want to see how I put them together, keep watching and let's get to crafting. Alright, so to create my beautiful ornament, I am going to be using this clear plastic ball. You could use glass if you prefer. I'm choosing to use a plastic because if it does fall, I don't want it breaking, especially after all the decor that I'm going to put on it. To cover my ornament, I am going to be using this stretch mesh. I got this from Hobby Lobby, but they do have some on Amazon. So before I begin, I'm going to remove this little loop hanger here from our ornament. And I'm going to grab a little cup to place my ornament ball in so it doesn't roll around on me. And I can set that aside for a moment so that I can grab my fabric and just grab from a corner. And I want to cut out a square of fabric that'll be enough to wrap around my ornament ball, and I want to make sure that of course it's just a little bit bigger than what I think, and I'm not going to be stretching it too much, but I do want it to have a little bit of stretch. Forgive my doggies, our trash is here to collect, and or you know, the waste management is here to collect our trash, and they're barking because of the noise of the huge truck. Alright, so here is my square all cut out. I'm going to take my ornament, and I have a piece of, well, a little bit of a tie, you know, a little twist tie here. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to gather it. I'm just going to grab it like that and gather it upward. Make sure you grab all this fabric up also. Alright, so now that I have all the edges pulled up, I'm just going to pull on it a little bit on my fabric, and I'm going to use this to hold it in place. Okay, that's holding it in place, and now I'm just going to kind of gather the fabric, move it around so it looks nice, so my gathers look nice. This is helping me so I don't have to continue holding it like that, and obviously I can use both hands for this. And then you can pull on it a little bit where needed. Right. When I have it, I'm satisfied with it. I would suggest try not to be too perfect because this will take you too much time. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is grab some thread. I'm going to leave a nice long end there to begin with. And I'm just going to hold it down like that with my thumb while I grab the rest of the thread and wrap around. Let's lift this up out of the way as tight as I can around. Just grab it tight. Once I've got it tight, I can go ahead and let go of this twist tie here. Let's get it out of the way so it doesn't get tied into the project. All right, there we go. Alright, I'm going to go one more time. I want to make sure it's nice and grabbing everything. Alright, now we can go ahead and cut, leave a nice long end so that you can loop it and knot it. And just knot it as many times as you feel you need. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and trim off some of the fabric. I'm not going to trim it all completely yet, but I'm going to trim off some of it just to control these ends a little bit better. And you can trim off the ends of the thread. Alright, so this is what we want. Okay. Alright, so I placed it back in my cup just to hold it a little bit while I pull this out of the way. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I am going to add glue, and I'm going to press it into the fabric and that little thread so that I can make sure that that will not move. And I'm pushing the glue into the fabric so it adheres onto the plastic of the ornament itself. Now I mentioned you could use a glass ornament. Other than it breaking easily if it falls, and why I want to use a plastic is also because with a hot glue gun or a hot glue, it is more likely to pull off of a glass ornament than it is a plastic. Now if you want to use a super glue or any other type of glue on your ornament, of course use that. I'm using my hot glue gun because it is quick, but I would recommend that you use the glue that you want to use, a more permanent glue, and then use a little bit of your hot glue to hold things in place while that glue is drying. All right, we're going to leave this alone and let that dry. So we'll go ahead and leave it in here. All right, so now that the glue on the outside edge there is dried or drying, I'm going to now flop open my fabric like that and then put glue right in here just to make sure, once again, that this fabric is adhering to my ornament. And I am smoothing out the glue. I don't want to leave it like lumpy. Okay, so then I can bring this back up and then just press it. Like that. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and trim a lot of this excess fabric. I want to make it level with the top edge of my little opening here. Right here. Once you're satisfied trimming it, then what you can do is go in with some more glue between those little ruffles now and then press them flat. And you just need little tiny bits of glue. Just keep going until you've gone all the way around and you flatten that as much as you can. All right, so now we're going to let that dry. Once it's dry, then we can go ahead and trim off a little bit more of any fabric that seems to be a little too high. I'm going to press down on it here. There we go. We'll let that dry and then we can now decorate it. Oh, there's one more step, but let's let it dry. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I am just trimming off any more of that fabric. I've allowed it to dry a little bit so that I can easily cut that. And I'm going to take our little hanger piece, our little loop here, and this one, because it's got these little slits in it, I can pop it open. Most of them you're able to do that, where you can pop them wide like that, and then we'll go ahead, or spread them wide I should say. We're going to put this back in there. Okay, so now I want to put glue under that to hold it down. And it's not going to fit like it was fitting before because you do have that fabric taking up room, and that's why we wanted to flatten it down as much as we could. Try to get rid of some of that bulk, but it is still going to be bulky. But we're going to cover all this, so don't worry about that. All right, so we've got our little hoop hanger. I don't know what this thing is called, this top part, those little filigree on the top, but we've got that back on there. All right, let's set it aside and let that dry. Okay, so now we are ready to embellish and decorate our bauble. Since it is now wrapped up in fabric, it looks beautiful. I love this look actually just by itself. But we're going to just added a little bit more decoration to it. And here I've got some velvet ribbon, I've got a sheer ribbon, and then I've got this rhinestone trim. So use whatever you like. You can use some lace trims if you prefer, whatever it is that you can find, or maybe you already have at home. All right, let's start off with our sheer ribbon. All right, so I'm going to add some glue here at this top edge and start placing my ribbon. Just push the edge as close to that little filigree there, the little top there. And I just want to look at it, see if I'm going straight here and go all the way to the other side, just to give myself an idea here of how that looks, and I like it. So on my bauble, my little plastic ornament, there is a little bit of a little bump here, little circle that I can see. So I know that is the center at the bottom, so I'm going to put glue there. That really helps me. Now, if I didn't have that, of course, I would just do what I just did and just align it as nicely as I could, or can. All right, bring it all the way around. I'm not going to hot glue the whole sheer ribbon because I'm going to add another trim on here, and then I'm going to add more glue. So I don't need to do that. I just need to hold it at one end at the bottom just to keep it centered. And then I'm going to more or less here where it's going to end, trim. All right, now I can hot glue that down. Now, if you've got a solid ribbon, of course, you want to add glue as you're laying it down to make sure that it doesn't move on you. And there it is. That looks lovely. You can barely see it. Of course, obviously you can use whatever colors you want for this. If you want to find your mesh in a different color, I mean, the possibilities are endless of what you could do with these colors. Next, I'm choosing this velvet right in the middle of that satin, or that sheer satin edged ribbon. And I'm just going to glue it down the center. This time adding glue as I put it down. There we go. I'll continue all the way around just like I did the first ribbon. I'm going to use the same velvet ribbon to cover the silver edge here. Now this isn't going to perfectly lay on there because the top now is kind of like at an angle. It is not going straight. So this is not going to glue down perfectly flat on there. And I don't mind that. I know that the bottom edge of my ribbon is basically what's going to glue down, so I'm adding glue on the bottom part of this little hanger part. What do we call that? Little cap. Would that be the cap? All right, so I'm done here, so I'll go ahead and trim it and glue down that little edge. I don't want it to overlap too much, so let's trim some more. Okay. And I'm going to cover that, so we're not going to worry about how that looks. That little finished edge there. All right. All right, so the next thing I want to do is now add my rhinestone trim on top of that velvet ribbon. So I'll just repeat what I just did with the ribbons and add glue, get it started here, and then go down and glue it as I place it. Now this rhinestone trim is a little bit more hard, a little bit more difficult to cut. So I'm making sure I'm not using my fabric scissors. And I'm going to cut one little bit at a time. There we go. And then just let it kind of fall forward a little bit so I can get in there with my hot glue gun and making sure I get all the little ends down. Okay, there we go. All right, so there we go. It looks beautiful. At least I think it does. I could continue embellishing this with some more rhinestone up here at the top if I decide that this is all I wanted to do with it. But I am going to do something up here at the top. So that is all the rhinestone that I'm going to add. But I am going to decorate one of the sides of my ornament, these undecorated sides. I could do both, but I'm only going to do one because when I hang it on my tree is so full of branches that really it stays still. It doesn't dangle around. For myself, it is more cost effective using less supplies so that I can use them for other projects. But if you prefer, do both sides, especially if when you hang it and it's going to dangle around, then you probably will want to choose to decorate both sides. All right. I'm going to be using these little filigree ornament pieces that I ordered from Amazon. It is an 80-piece gold assorted filigree. And let's see, I am going to use, I think I chose 2 of these and this one right here. But look at all the other designs, little butterflies. This round one here. There's a bigger piece right here. I think that's it. Oh, there's a little corner type of piece here. All right, now let's go ahead and use what I've pulled out here. All right, so I'm gonna put my ornament where I can view it, the front here. And this little cup is helping me to hold it in place. I'm gonna angle it so that I can see it. All right, so these come flat, but they're thin little metal pieces and you can bend them. So I need to give this a little bit of a curve. I'm gonna be testing it on here as I do that. Now I've already made one ornament, and one thing I realized when I was doing the other ornament, I put this down a little too far down. So this time I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I correct that situation. And the reason I think that I was doing that was because I thought I was only gonna put one piece, so I went like that, but then I decided to put one underneath it. So this time I'm gonna make sure that I center it. All right. Once I know where it's going to go, and I'll need to put the glue on my ornament because this is where it's going to touch, or my little filigree piece, because that's where it's going to touch onto the ornament ball here. Again, eyeballing it here, making sure I center it. There we go. Just like that. All right, so now I want to add these pieces. I'm going to turn one upside down because I want one underneath and one on the top. And I'm going to curve them as well and test it. And I know now where it's going to touch, so I'll go ahead and add glue to my little filigree piece. Again, you're going to want to use a glue that'll hold all this. I'm using my hot glue gun once again for the purpose of the video, but when you do use your regular glue, use a little bit of your hot glue anyway to tack it down so that it stays in place while it glues. Now, a lot of people already know that. I'm just repeating it because I know a lot of people jump, and maybe you didn't catch the first time that I said it, so, or jump the videos, I should say. All right, one down here. We're curving it. I could also curve the little piece like that. We're not going to worry about that. I need to curve it a little bit more. And I also need to be looking how I'm placing it because I do want this bigger loop bit going down, as over here it's going upward. All right, I think that'll be good. It's not very straight, but it's okay. All right, so there we go. And that could be a finished product, but I want to embellish the little filigrees with some little beads and some rhinestones. So let's go ahead and grab those. All right, so off to the side here, I've got some little beads and some little rhinestones. I've got a gold, a couple of those. And then I've got some, these are actually Swarovski. I don't know how to say that, Swarovski, is that right? Swarovski crystals. Oops, I almost lost one. Let's put it back on our mat here so I don't drop it on the floor. Then I've got a one-sided, like a one flat side and an ovally side pearl bead here. It's not really a bead, it's just a little embellishment. And then I do have some little tiny little pearl beads here, almost as small as like seed beads. And then I've got these rice shaped pearl beads and I'm dropping them everywhere. So I'm just going to grab whatever I need for the ornament. So I've already set that aside, exactly how many I'm going to use. I do have an ornament off to the side that I've already done just to remind me of where exactly I placed everything. So I'm cheating on this ornament. But of course, you embellish it, you know, however you want. If you do want to do them all differently, obviously that's probably what I would want to do them all different so that each one has its own little look. All right, I'm just going to use my hot glue gun again. Again, you can use some beading glue, and let's get started. And then I've got this little handy dandy little tool that has like a little a wax tip here that grabs onto the little bead or rhinestone. Okay, so I'm just going to embellish it, and I'm just going to start adding things wherever I wish. I'm not telling you like, oh, this is where I'm placing it here, I'm placing that one there, because I mean, you're obviously going to do your own decor, your own little filigrees, whatever you find, whatever designs you choose. So your placement is not going to be like mine. I'm just giving you an idea of what I'm doing so that you can get inspired and do your own thing. That little noise that you're hearing, all that clicking and clicking, is because this is a wireless glue gun, so I'm plugging it into its holder just to make sure, you know, it stays hot. Ah, I forgot what I'm doing. Okay, I'm adding this gold rhinestone now. I think I had put down some glue in another spot that it was not going to go in. Yeah, I put glue down the center there, and I don't need it there. Or in a little indentation in there, and I need it on the actual little metal part. That's where I chose to do it. Okay. And then I've got little tiny little pearls. And I'm reminding myself of where they went. Right there. Oops, wrong end. I am trying to grab these little beads so that the little holes are like on opposite sides and not underneath and on the top. So when I put down my little bead, I don't have that little hole showing up at the top. It'll be on the sides, or this way, but it'll be on the sides instead. Alright, now I've got 2 Swarovski crystals that I need to add on. And those are on the sides of this one here. I don't know if you could hear that, my rooster. Or one of them. Alright, so I'm done embellishing it with beads and rhinestones. I could add a ton more. I want to do more, but I'm stopping there. Kind of wish I had some red rhinestones and I didn't, or some like ruby toned. Alright, I am going to go ahead and cut a piece of the same gold thread to make a little string loop at the top so that I can use that to hang my ornament. And I like this really thin ribbon because then you won't see it, you know, going over the branches of my Christmas tree. But that'll hold. Look at that. Alright. So use whatever you want, a little ribbon or a more substantial thread. Alright, so now I want to make a little bow at the top. So I'm going to use the same sheer ribbon that I used before. Let's get rid of this. They're confused. All right. Oh, let me use my fabric. All right, let's cut the edges here, or the ends. And I'm going to hot glue that at the top right here. Oh, you know what I should have done is that I should have decorated this side so I could cover that little seam. See, all this would have covered that. But that's at the back, at least for myself when I place it on my tree. It's at the back. All right. Could always decide to decorate the backs or the 2 sides. All right, let's put this up here. A little bow. Alright, so here I've got this little spray of mini pine cones and little red berries. And I grabbed this from Hobby Lobby where they have their little mini decorative items for Christmas. I've gone ahead and I've cut off a little pine cone, and now I want 2 of these little berries. Cut those. And I'm going to use that to embellish a little bow at the top here. I'm adding a touch of red because this Christmas I'm doing gold, ivory, a touch of white, maybe some copper or brown. I'm not really sure exactly if I'm going to add browns at this moment, but I want those colors, but I still want some red, so I'm going to be adding little red berries here and there in my decor. So there we go, just like that. And that is complete. All right, everyone, so there is my completed ornament, and I've hung them up so that you can see. You can see some tape back there because I've taped them together to keep them from twirling around so that I could show you how they look. They look absolutely beautiful. They are stunning. This is the second ornament that I decided to use, these little filigree embellishments, and I'm very happy. Also the fabric, pretty much almost all of the same supplies as I did last week, except instead of using that rhinestone trim, I used a beautiful gold lace. All right, so I'm super happy with this project. So I'm going to give myself a big old thumbs up, and I hope that you too will give me a big old thumbs up and leave a kind comment down below and let me know what you thought of my project for this week. If you are enjoying the content of my videos, I'm going to ask that you subscribe if you haven't already done so, and choose all in notifications so that you get notified as soon as I upload a video. Look at the way the light flickers on the gold filigree. Beautiful. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you for supporting my channel. And as always, enjoy.